Peace and power, family. My name is Dennis Ausar Winkler, known as the psychosocial spiritual entrepreneur. We have a powerful brother at the Temple of New African Thought today. A brother Imhotep, Fatiu. I know you've been crisscrossing the world doing a lot of things. So most recently, you're just getting back from Africa.
Yes.
In particular, you're coming from where, Ghana?
Ghana.
So I know you've been doing a lot of things. You've been traveling all around the United States. From traveling around the United States, you actually went out of the country. You, your queen, and your little prince.
Yes.
Okay, their names?
Yep, Ife, my wife Ife Fatiu, and my son Inyami Fatiu. We all traveled together. Came back into the country October the 3rd, Saturday morning. Went home, dropped our bags off, got back on the road. Went to Philadelphia to be a part of the LOX conference. My wife gave a presentation. I was a part of the authors roundtable. My wife was a part of that, and then my wife also was a part of a panel discussion, and it went very well. But when you're doing this work, you really don't have too much time to rest. You got to stay in. You got to stay in it, because we got to realize one thing, and I stress this one thing, is that the people behind oppression, they don't take time off. Because their business is oppressing. They don't take time off. They don't go on vacations. Even when we believe that they're on vacation, they take their laptop, they take their notepad, and they take their thinkers with them. And they're thinking constantly how to magnify and intensify oppression because it benefits them. So if we want to overturn oppression, we can't be in the business of trying to take time off. We got to constantly intensify and magnify the work of liberation.
So there's a lot of upset people right now.
They should be upset because Dr. Elijah Muhammad said that it's going to take dissatisfaction to bring about liberation. So if we don't make people upset, we're not going to get anything done. And so I'm not in the business to make you happy. Right. See, my philosophy is brutal truth. I believe in being brutally truthful to you in hopes that you'll wake up. Because we're living in brutal times. Right.
So you're saying no time to when you're a fighter or a liberator of your people, or you're a warrior or you're a warrioress of liberation. There's no time to take a break.
It's no time to take a break. We got to understand one thing, that when we take breaks, we disengage ourselves from the work. Now we should never really truly disengage ourselves. We should rest. We should rest because rest is essential to our health.
Right.
We should relax. Relaxation is essential to our health, right? But we should never lose the thought of acquiring our freedom. We should never put that on the back burner. We should never say, I'm going to go ahead and disengage the ideal of getting free and place that over here, and I'm going to go run around and have some fun for a week, then come back to it. Right. We're not going to get free that way.
Absolutely.
So even when you rest, you must rest with the thought of freedom on your mind. When you relax, you must relax with the thought of freedom on your mind. That's the only way an oppressed people can become free.
Right. So in the mental health field, this is what they say, stress can come about.
Yes.
You can pick up other people's illnesses and all these other things. Self-care. So and so what you're saying is, like a mental health practitioner, they actually put on their schedule every year some time to help them in the healing process so they can continue to come back stronger. You understand what I'm trying to say? So and
rejuvenate.
Rejuvenate.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You have to rejuvenate, and that's why from an African point of view, for those of us that's in the struggle the way we want to define it, the African liberation struggle for sovereignty, if we want to be true about that, we have to move from the position of our ancestors. Our ancestors understood the necessity of community. So we're going to be effective. We need community and organization, because community is what nurtures you and what nourishes you. So as long as you have a community, you will always be took care of. We should never be doing this work by ourselves.
Right.
We should never move from a position that is just me or I. We must seek to build community, and as Kwame Ture teaches us, we must build and establish organization, because the organization is what perpetuates our existence. It's the organizations. It's not me. It's not the vessel, Imhotep Asis Fatiu, that matters, right? It's the energy and the spirit that emanates this vessel that allows me to erect the institutions that make me relevant. It's not what I do today. It's what I do that's going to live beyond me that makes me relevant. And that's the reason why the community becomes so essential and so necessary, because I'm nourished.
Sometimes I find that we forget that, some of the things that we learned, in what we call the lie, isn't necessarily completely bad. one thing is we won't even take care of our quote unquote leadership. Make sure that our leadership is properly financial stable, that their health is good, that they don't have to worry about just mundane little things, so that they can do bigger and greater work. So, can you talk on that just a little?
Oh yes, nothing like I believe. One of the reasons why folk in positions of leadership that's out here in the community just doing work on minimal levels, whether they are lecturing, doing workshops or whatever. And the reason why we're not focusing about our elder leadership,
right,
the authentic individuals, is because these people that have weaseled themselves into some type of leadership position,
right,
they really don't understand what it means to be African in the truest sense of the word. Because we understood the African way of doing things, we know that our elders are essential, because the elders are the custodians of the culture.
Right.
They are the archives of the culture, of the history.
Right.
So how and why would you neglect them? They are the most important, because it's the elders that spend the most time with the children, because the elders are the ones who know our way. So the elders are best equipped to transmit and convey our way to our children. Right. So it becomes essential and necessary for us to make sure our elders are took care of. But since people aren't studying, they aren't being encouraged to study, we're not really practicing the ways of our ancestors, we have forgotten a truly ancestral habit. And that is to care for the custodians of your culture, because our culture is everything. And when we begin to neglect our elders, the authentic elders, we are essentially neglecting the culture. And when the culture is neglected, it goes back to what Dr. Cheikh was talking about. It's cultural aggression.
Right.
The cultural aggression is that when we begin to behave and perpetuate the ways of foreigners at the expense of our own culture, what happens is that the African culture becomes suppressed. It becomes suppressed underneath a foreign culture. And that foreign culture is European ways of being and thinking. We got to overthrow that. And that's prevalent. And that's prevalent within the community, and it's prevalent amongst people that are masquerading as true leaders. And they can masquerade because a lot of us are not reading, we're not studying. And that's one of the reasons why I produced this book right here.
Right.
Politics of Urban Struggle, because it goes into how to do the work.
Yes.
It explains very key principles. And one of the things I talk about in here is apprenticeship.
Yes, sir.
And I speak about apprenticeship in the sense that it's an African tradition.
Yes.
That we each should come up under someone skilled in a field or discipline to minimize the mistakes that we're going to make when we come into that field. And what I mean by that is that people who want to be leaders in the African community, if they have not apprenticed under authentic, organized leaders, they should not be allowed to be in the front. They should not even be allowed to be in the front, because they're not qualified or equipped to lead our people. Because our situation is so dire, we need people who are competent and skilled in the area of organizing and leading African people. And only folk who can do that are folk who are truly grounded in African culture and centered in the African way.
Powerful, brother. You said a lot, and I mean I can go so many different ways. But the last piece you said, I got to cling on to that just a little. And you said that that in order to be a leader, we should, or those who are put before us as leaders, should go through an apprenticeship program.
Yes, no doubt.
And now, so in other words, a rites
of
passage. Now, I'll just tell you some of the things I've experienced that may be a bit of a struggle when it comes to that area. So what I'm saying is, many times the scholars, those who we revere or look up to as elders, don't necessarily want to take on a Jegna role. They don't want to take on any apprentice. And I'll just tell you from a general point of view, from being in and asking questions when you go to lectures and so on and so forth, you ask a question like, how can I help you? And they say money. How can I help you? Money. How can I help you? Money. I've even heard some say, I don't need bodies, I just need money. If you don't have money, how can you be an asset to the community? You know, and these are the questions they ask. I say, so okay, outside of money, okay, we got the money thing straight. So how can I help you? How can I be a body? How can, you know, what, you know, do you have any room for that type of individual? Many times I realize that a lot of times something is prohibiting those connections.
I have similar observations, and I used to wonder why. And this is what I believe have happened. Now, and this comes from me studying for over 20 years, observing, being actively involved in the struggle since 1995, and being able to communicate directly with specific elders.
Yes.
And what I believe have happened due to a lack of study within the community is I believe a lot of elders have become bittered with the fact that African people are not grasping and are not moving the way that we should move, because our conditions should dictate that we should behave differently from how we're behaving. I believe a lot of elders are bitter.
Okay.
I've spoken to a lot of them, and I believe they are bitter. And then on top of that, they have encountered so many dysfunctional and backwards organizations who have dealt with them wrongly.
Right.
Because I've spoken to some elders who have actually revealed to me that they have been dealt with wrongly by other organizations.
Absolutely.
And I think that have put a stain on their spirit. Not so much that they want to give up in the struggle, to the degree that they really don't have that type of faith in us the way that it should be, because we really haven't shown them that.
Right.
So now they feel like they gotta be the one man person or the one woman person to do this thing.
Right.
So it becomes incumbent upon those of us who are aware to show these elders that, hey, all is not in vain. And the reason why I say it, because when I was in Ghana, I ran into Baba Kamal Kambon in Ghana. I didn't know he was going to be there.
Okay.
But we ran into him, and we had a brief moment to talk for about 35 minutes. And the Baba pretty much, you know, shared some things with us in terms of why he stopped writing books.
Wow.
And he pretty much said, essentially, you know, I don't want to mess his words up, so I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah.
He essentially said that the information wasn't landing anyway. And this is what I said to him. I said, those of us who need to hear what you have to say, we have received it.
Wow.
And your writings are not in vain. We are moving out on what you're saying.
Absolutely.
And in that moment, I saw a glimmer of light in his eye. And that let me know, man, that, you know, our elders have experienced a lot of bad things with our people.
Right.
And that's, like I said, that's the reason why I put this piece together, Politics of Urban Struggle. Because we have to go at this struggle differently. And we got to be about the business of making sure that people understand what they must be doing and what they must not do. And it got to be standards in the struggle. We just can't say, you can do whatever you want to do. Like we say, no, it's standards.
Right.
There are do's and don'ts.
Yes, sir.
You know, this struggle is predicated on African morality, African ethics, because we're trying to bring on African sovereignty. And so, from an African standpoint, you cannot mislead the people. You can't lie to the people. You can't deceive the people. You must be transparent. It is consensus. You know, there is no big I and little u in the African standpoint. There is no I.
Wow.
There is no most popular.
Most popular.
You know, in the African context. That's the reason why in the African context, you don't see a whole bunch of African names on all the literature that was produced in ancient Kemet, because it was produced by the people for the people. They didn't run around saying, you know, I'm the most popular, I'm the best. You know what I'm saying? That's European stuff.
Absolutely.
That's European stuff, and we gotta cut that out, and we gotta call that out. That's not African at all. The African way is that you're a total servant for the people. You didn't hear Marcus Garvey saying that.
No.
Marcus Garvey said, I'm a servant of the people.
Right.
He never said I was the best. He never said I'm the most popular. He didn't use those type of terminologies for the most part. He worked for the people. And that's what we got to get our people to understand, that if the person that's standing before you is not letting you know that he or she is your servant, then you need to question him or her. Question their intentions because we must serve you.
Absolutely.
You don't serve us. If we say we are leaders, leadership implies that you must serve the people.
Absolutely.
You know, you don't get into leadership positions to not work. The reason you're in leadership positions is to serve the people, to provide them with a model of excellence in service.
So when I think about that and some of what you just said, you know, just going to Africa and seeing Baba Kabone there, you know, what we say, small world now, you know, small world, you know, what's the odds of traveling, you know, all the way to the continent, as massive and big as it is, and you happen to run across Baba Kabone.
Yes.
That's just that in itself should be affirmation for both parties. You understand? So, well, at least that's from my point of view. It's affirmation. You know that the ancestors are, you know, traveling with you.
Yes, sir.
This whole thing about leadership and there being standards. A lot of people come on the rap when we talk about standards. I saw you, and I want to put no kind of case on it, and you're doing something other than what you said that you are about, and I now say, brother, now what's going on with that? That looks a little funny. Or now, and then I see that you're causing could possibly cause harm to further exacerbate our condition when you're supposed to be a healer, but in fact you are one that is actually adding to the destruction. And I just say, well, look, you may have to, we need to do something, this needs to be changed or whatever. You can't lead our people and still leading them, because people really look at what you do, right?
Yes.
They don't really, you can talk all day, but they really know what you do. And what I've noticed is that people are so emotional that if I was to say something to you about that, or come out before the so-called community and say something, they not necessarily attacking you, but attacking the behavior. We'll say, look, brother, you're not supposed to be doing this or doing that. And then people say, well, you're a grown-up. You are a grown-up. I say, yeah, he's a grown-up, but that's not, you know, grown-ups just don't haphazardly live life, especially when we talk from an African standpoint. There's standards. So, and I hear the people in the greater quote-unquote leadership positions spewing this information out. He's a grown-up, I'm a grown-up. I'm a man, he's a man. What they do in closed doors, they do in closed doors. What, you know, it doesn't really matter. But from my standpoint, we can't do all this stuff in the dark and then come before the people and act like this stuff in the dark is not happening, and when we find out that it is happening, never challenge it because they're adults.
That's because what has happened in the African community is that people have come along and they have developed the ability to use intellect. So people use their intellect to rationalize thinking and behaving as Europeans, and they mask it under African rhetoric. And so you can do that when you got a body of people who don't understand what it is to be African. So when you got a large amount of people who are totally ignorant of themselves, so you can come amongst them and you can use intellect and you can rationalize behaving as the enemy, and you can mask that behavior under African rhetoric. So that's what have happened. Because any person that says that what he or she does behind closed doors or in his or her personal life has no bearing on the work that he or she does in the community, that's European 100%. Because there is nothing that I can do in the dark that don't affect us in the light. See, my entire existence is African. So whatever I do impacts my people. So if I'm behind closed doors smoking crack cocaine and shooting heroin, that eventually is going to affect my people. So I can't come before you and say, hey, I don't shoot it outside on the corners. I don't smoke crack in public. Now when I come before you, I'm standing straight up. I only smoke crack when my doors are closed. So why are you condemning me? That's European. I can't get no pass. Now I'm not saying that you should beat a person up across the head.
Absolutely.
But what I am saying is that my peer group that's in the struggle, my peer group should hold me accountable. That's what I'm saying, because the African way is that we got an age grade system. So I'm saying those that are in my peer group that's in the struggle, if you see me veer off the path, it becomes your duty and your responsibility to hold me accountable, to put me back on path. If I rebel and buck the assistance that you seek to offer me, then you should deal with me. But first you should deal with me as a brother. You should deal with me as a friend. You know what I'm saying? As a partner in this struggle.
Right.
You should reach out to me. You should wrap your arms around me. You should attempt to heal and nourish me.
Right.
But if I rebel that, if I buck against that, if I refuse that, I'm an enemy to the cause. And you should treat me as such.
You gave us a means to go about rectifying, you know, that type of situation. You gave us the group, the peer group. You said that we should handle this in our peer group.
That's right. You
then say, well, now, you know, I should come to you, or someone should come to a person who's going through that type of time in their life, because we all can fall short someday, right? You never know what's happening.
The possibility is there. It's
right.
possible.
Yeah. So instead of burying a person, instead of tearing them down, let's see if we can give them some assistance. However, if that person is too far gone, then there's another measure that we have to take.
That's right, and that's the African way. See, the African way is about balance and harmony. It's about order. So we're not going to allow chaos and confusion and disruption to remain in our midst. That's the African way. So we're going to take the Maotic way to reach our brother or our sister to heal him or her.
Right.
But if he or she refuses, if he or she rebels and buck the healing, if they buck the advice of their peer group,
right,
and then we take it to the elders, the peer group above us, to let them know, hey, well, they're not receptive, they bucking, they not open for it, maybe you can reach them. And then we try all channels, and you get the same result: rebellion, bucking, resistance. Then we got to rationalize in our mind from an African standpoint that this person at this moment no longer wants to be African.
Right.
And at that moment, we no longer can treat them as African.
Right. You know, just thinking about that, I've been hearing a lot of this, people making mockery of, you know, terms and what I can quote, what I will call, in fact, you know, it's funny, I got the book here, right, Afrocentricity. Dr. Malefic Asante speaks about, you know, a liberation language, and how important that is, that, you know, that we are clear in what we're saying, and we utilize words for our liberation. So we have to be very clear about that. And I in having conversation with you in the past, I know that you yourself speak about the importance of words. To hear people utilize words as Hotep, niggas, and, you know, and the con artist community, and like making mockery of, you know, words and terms that, you know, our elders and ancestors, you know, I'm talking about not ancestors way back, I'm talking about the ancestors like like Dr. Ben and Dr. Clark and Asa G. Hilliard and so on and so forth, that they helped bring this new language to us in the way that we utilize words, and now to hear people tear it down, it kind of disturbs me a little bit.
I'm gonna tell you what's happening. I'm gonna give you a metaphor, and what's happening is this right here. There's a terminology that I developed several years back called the Euro man. The Euro man, metaphorically speaking, is a chump that sits on your throne, but not you personally. It's a little chump that sits on your throne, and your throne is your dome, what's inside your head. That's the Euro man. The Euro man have usurped your dome. The Euro man wants to remain there. By all means, the Euro man do not want to be displaced or replaced. So what's happening is this here. If I have a bad experience with one of my brothers or sisters, what happens is that the Euro man dictate that I take my isolated bad experience and I condemn a body of people for it to justify remaining in a niggerish state of being myself. See, I don't want to come out of my state of being because the Euro man do not want to be dethroned. So I gotta justify being being against righteousness because I had a bad experience. So I don't want to seek any type of African understanding as to why my brother may have behaved incorrectly in that moment, right? What I want to do is use an isolated experience to condemn a body of people that's attempting to move from one state of being to a better state of being, but I don't want to move because I want to remain in this slavish state of being because I enjoy conspicuous consumption. I enjoy all type of sexual deviant behavior. I enjoy ripping and running, doing what I want to do when I want to do it. I enjoy not being accountable. I enjoy not standing up. I enjoy not being African. I enjoy being other than myself. And since I enjoy that because I'm dictated by who? The Euro man, I'm going to utilize one single incident and I'm going to throw it out there and say those Hotep niggas. With the S on it, right? And I'm going to use this derogatory terminology in the same sentence with Hotep. Because I want to justify not moving forward. So I'm going to make it seem as if the people who utilize this terminology aren't what they say because I had a bad experience. See, that's what I'm going to say to the con artist community because I had a bad experience. So therefore, I'm going to say everyone that's trying to become aware or raise their consciousness is bad because I want to justify staying in this slavish state of being that I'm in. That's what's happening.
So, you know, even thinking about that, I just think about just the way that things have changed. You know, change isn't always bad, you know, but when I look at those that my father studied now, and when I look at those who my father studied and who were in the front, you know, those who we call scholars and activists and so on and so forth. And when I look at those who are getting the attention today, it's kind of scary somewhat. Like it's almost as if those who utilize the most vulgar language, those who do things that are less than African centered, those who act more like the populace of black people that are sick, get a lot of attention. Whereas those predecessors had a lot more dignity, from my standpoint, a lot more prowess, a lot of things. And I don't know if you've noticed this.
I think we can attribute that to a number of things, but one of the things I believe it can be attributed to is the fact that the predecessors, they didn't have YouTube and Facebook.
Okay.
And we are dealing with a population who don't want to read.
Right.
Who don't want to read. They just want to Google, go to YouTube, and go to Facebook.
Right.
So if you are a person who know how to manipulate the YouTube and Facebook,
right,
and you streaming, if you can Instagram, if you know how to manipulate that very well, you become popular.
Right. In
the mindset of our people. Because our people don't want to pick a book up.
Right.
And I'm not saying all black people don't want to read, because a lot of us do read. Yeah. But there's a large body of us that's not reading, that's not studying. We're not reading the great works. So therefore, we don't have a concept of what profoundness is and what it isn't. So if a person can kind of manipulate their way through Facebook and YouTube, they become very popular. Right. You know? All they got to do is just be able to just regurgitate some information and be on Facebook and be on YouTube, consistently manipulating that with imagery and things of that nature. They become popular for our people.
Right.
But then you take a Dr. Marima Ani. In my opinion, because I do a lot of reading and a lot of study, in my opinion, she is one of the most profound people standing on the face of this earth.
Right.
One of the most profound people standing. And I know I have not spoken to or talked to everyone on the face of this earth.
Right.
You know? So in a general sense, based on my brief travels and me watching different DVDs, watching YouTube, reading many different books and articles and newspapers and things of that nature, she is one of the most profound people that we have right now.
Right.
But the masses don't know who she is.
Right.
They don't know who she is, because you're not going to find her manipulating no Facebook and no YouTube and no Ustream. You're not going to find her doing all that. So she's not in the living room or the bedroom of the most of the people.
Right.
So we got to figure out a way to get the people to understand that it's not just always about YouTube and Facebook. You got to read and study. And the people who have captured the minds of our people have to begin to get our people into studying.
Right.
They have to be instructed to study. Because if we don't get these people into studying, we are doomed. To paraphrase Dr. Wade Knowles back in February 2015, I had a conversation with the doctor. The doctor said this. He said, I believe that if this generation that we're in right now do not get it together, he said that I believe that we'll be beyond repair. That's how dreadful our situation is. Those of us or individuals who have found themselves in leadership position have to instruct the people to study. Right. We have to begin to develop the minds of the masses of our people. We just can't keep this one-man shogun type of mentality. You run around and just talk to our people, because the lectural model is outdated anyway. Me talking to you from over a podium is outdated. We need to get more so into workshops and interactiveness, ways that we get our people engaged into some type of dialogue. Because if you really understand development, if you look at development in its essence, development comes about by way of struggle. It comes about by way of resistance. Think about muscle development.
Right.
You cannot build muscle without resistance. So therefore, if development is going to come in terms of educational development, it has to be some type of vacillation, some type of oscillation, of some type of back and forwards taking place. Because the building block to everything in existence is vibrations. Vibrations is moving like this right here. Right. So if vibrations is the basic building block to all there is in existence, then why shouldn't we think that some type of back and forwardness would be necessary to development? So we don't get our people engaged into going back and forward into some type of dialogical discourse. Right. We're not going to bring about development. It can't always be about one person talking from a podium to the people.
Right. You know, that brings up a good point. A few things I want before we go. I want a few things. I want you to tell me, who is Aziz Imhotep Fatiu?
Great question. Imhotep Aziz Fatiu is, first and foremost, I'm a father and I'm a husband. I have 4 children. My youngest child is 3, my oldest is 27. And I have another son, 25, and a daughter, 24. I'm the husband of Ife Ausar Fatiu. I like to view myself as being the first urban philosopher. I say the first urban philosopher because there's a line of thought that I'm developing called urban philosophy, and this is the second installment of the book that I wrote. The first one is Urban Philosophy, Thought and Behavior System, and within that book, I go through the stages of study and how to go about studying to bring about development. So it is addressed in their book on a level where as though a person can get a basic understanding how to go about doing that if they get the first book, Urban Philosophy, Thought and Behavior System. So I see myself as being the first urban philosopher, a scientific practitioner, scientific Pan-African practitioner, meaning that our position is Pan-Africanism nonetheless. But we look at Pan-Africanism from the perspective that we have to synthesize the thought, practices, behavior, philosophies, ideological positions of every single Pan-Africanist in some type of way. We have to bring it to some type of system. So that makes it systematized. So that's why we say scientific. And we also say scientific to indicate that we're not just pseudo-Pan-Africanists. So we're not a Pan-Africanist that's saying that we Pan-Africanists, but at the same time we subscribe to Marxism. No, we believe in a form of Pan-Africanism that's rooted 100% in Africa. Everything about it has to come from Africa. That's the reason why you got the ISM on it. After African. Africanism, it lets you know that it's about practicing Africa. Right. So the first urban philosopher, a scientific Pan-African practitioner, a consultant, an organizational development consultant, relationship consultant, dedicated, committed to the struggle 100%. I don't like to call myself a public speaker, but I can come speak to you if you need me to. An organizer, workshop developer. I'm a brother and I'm a servant, and I'm 100% committed.
Let me touch that. My question that I wanted to ask you just came back. So with that being said, a lot of people say a lot of what you just said earlier when you said that the time is over with this one person leadership model. Lecture thing is a thing of the past. Now, the interesting thing is, I hear a lot of people say that, but the same people who say that are the very same people who still practice that model and are the same people who benefit from that particular model. Thus, in my mind, they're saying one thing but practicing another thing. So, what's different about you?
Good point. Because what I'm more so saying is that I think that if we're gonna bring about development, I think the model in terms of just lecturing to people, it's an outdated model.
Yes, sir.
When you got one person just standing and just lecturing, people do it because a lot of our people are so conditioned to it, and we think it should be done that way because it's coming out of the academy. Right. You know, we are mimicking the academy. Whereas the African way is a way that involves collective development. It involves discussion and discourse. Right. So to do that, you have to come from up above and come down and be level with your people and get involved in some type of discourse and some type of discussion of going back and forth into action. It got to be interactive. Right. That's more so what I mean. I mean that we need to get away from the one person trying to lecture to the masses and more so get involved in something that the one person get the masses involved into it themselves. So what distinguishes me from everyone else is that I can do the lecture from the podium, don't prefer to do that. Prefer to get you in a circle and we get involved in some type of discourse or some dialogue, whereas everyone can be empowered together. So my position as a leader is to empower everyone around me. And I'll give you an example. Now, urban philosophy is my baby.
Okay.
Everything about urban philosophy came from me. The shirt I got on, the brand, everything came out of my head, you know, through the help of my ancestors and things of that nature and studying other elders. Right. So when I brought it to the organization, it became the organizations. So now urban philosophy, the clothing line that we're developing, I don't even run that.
Absolutely.
Brother Anani runs that because he needs to be empowered.
I know that to be true.
Right? That needs to be true. Now, even the study class, we got a study class. You know, I got Brother Anani and Brother Haru running the study class. Right. Now, we developing the cafe. I don't run the cafe. Brother Haru and Brother Harani runs our cafe, the Grub Factory. Right. The youth organization basically was birthed by me, Urban Youth Initiative Project. Absolutely. In 2006. The whole curriculum was designed by me. Right. Like I said, with the help of my ancestors. But I do not run it. Sister Harmony runs our youth organization, and she make every single decision that she need to make.
Absolutely.
Because everybody got to be empowered. You got to get everybody involved. It's not about me. It's about utilizing what I have to get everybody else involved. And that's what good leadership is about.
Absolutely, bro.
That's what it's about.
Before we go, three things. One, because we tailor our platform towards those who are quote-unquote entrepreneurs, business owners, and aspirants. And again, when I say entrepreneurs, I'm speaking of those with a certain type of spirit. Yes. I'm not speaking of someone who actually has a coffee shop or, you know, you can have whatever. You can be running an organization. You can be running anything, doing anything that most people won't do because they don't have that spirit. So could you leave the viewers with one of your greatest feats, your greatest reward, and also anything that you haven't said as of yet. You know, and in fact, before we even go there, we can get this. We're gonna be able to get this on Conscious Black Business.
Yes.
You're gonna be able to get this book and his other book, right? Get that at consciousblackbusiness.com. Consciousblackbusiness.com. In fact, check us out at Conscious Black Business Network on Facebook. Join the group. We have an exclusive group. We'll have some more information about my brother Imhotep here.
My personal greatest feat, in my opinion, was the transformation of myself. Because I didn't come into knowledge from going to college or anything of that nature. The last grade that I actually completed in their system was the 8th grade. So my knowledge base comes from me engaging myself, because I come from the streets. You know, I sold drugs, I carried guns, I shot, I got shot. I was engaged in what they would define as being criminality, but in reality was rebellion. You know, it was just misguided rebellion, because I inherently felt like this system was doing something to me. I couldn't put my finger on it because I was young and didn't know what it was, so I rebelled. And as a result of my rebellion, I was captured and placed in their dungeons. So I spent 14 years in the dungeon. So while I was in a dungeon, I underwent my own metamorphosis, and I believe that was my greatest feat. My greatest reward is my children and my wife, because they are my inspirations. And in terms of the things that I would like to accomplish, I think my accomplishments would be the legacy that I leave behind in terms of developing this whole line of thought of urban philosophy, because this is just the second installment of many urban philosophy books that's going to be coming forward. I'm already in the process of working on a 3rd book, which will be Urban Philosophy, New African Revolutionary Vanguard. Look for that in 2016. The Politics of Urban Struggle just dropped this month in October 2015. So that's it, you know, in a nutshell. You know, my greatest feat was my transformation. My rewards are my children and my wife. You know, and my accomplishments is the legacy that I look forward to leave for African people.
Wow, okay. So is there anything else that you would like to add before we close out that we haven't touched on?
Yeah, I would like to add one thing, and this is for my people. Investigate. But let's do it the original way. Let's do it the old way. I'm not saying we can't use Google. You can use Google. It's okay. But do not neglect going to libraries, going to bookstores, and purchasing and reading books. Don't neglect that. Don't give that up. Because if we give up these hard copy books and rely solely on the internet, we're gonna be doomed, because they're gonna shut that off one day. If we stop producing hard copy books and start doing all e-books, and we stop researching the hard copy way and just start doing everything online, we are doomed, black man, black woman, African people, African nation, because these folks that's against us, they're going to shut that down one day. When they shut that down, they're going to shut down all knowledge. So don't be so naive to give this up. Get back in the libraries. Build your library. And with that, I say Hotep.
Thank you. So with that family, I say peace and power.
Hotep.